For decades we were told the same story: go to school, get good grades, get a job, and life will work itself out. That model used to work back when the world moved slower, back when stability actually meant something. But right now, that system is collapsing in real time. And most people are still trying to navigate it like nothing's changed. They're waking up every day, chasing job listings, polishing RIN sums, sending out applications to companies that ghost them, and wondering why it feels like they're stuck in quicksand. The reason? The rules have changed, but no one updated the playbook. Here's the true thing: we are living in a time of technological and social disruption. And if you're still operating on the old idea that jobs equal security, you're playing a losing game. Artificial intelligence is replacing tasks faster than companies can hire. Automation isn't just coming, it's already here. And businesses are under pressure to cut costs, not increase headcount. So what does that mean? It means the system doesn't have space for everyone anymore. Not in the way it used to. Now I want you to think about this for a second. The very idea of a job, one title, one company, one boss, was never designed with human potential in mind. It was designed with control in mind. It was built during the Industrial Revolution to create predictable outcomes, to fit people into boxes, to make you a cog in someone else's machine. And for a while, people were okay with that because it gave them a sense of direction. But today, that structure is not only outdated, it's harmful. It breeds dependence. It disconnects you from your creativity. It stifles initiative. And most importantly, it makes you wait. You wait for someone to see your potential. You wait for someone to give you a title. You wait for a raise. You wait to be noticed. But here's the thing: when you're constantly waiting for permission, you give away your power. And right now, the most dangerous thing you can do in this economy is wait. I want you to consider something deeply psychological here. Human beings are not wired to feel alive while passively enduring uncertainty. We thrive when we're solving problems, when we're moving forward, when we feel like our actions matter. The traditional job hunt robs you of that. It keeps you in limbo. And limbo is a breeding ground for anxiety, self-doubt, and burnout. You could be in a. That's why you can spend applying for positions and still feel like you're not moving, because you're not in control. There's a concept in psychology called locus of control, and it refers to how much you believe you have influence over your own outcomes. People with an internal locus of control take action. They adapt. They build. People with an external locus of control wait. They blame. They freeze. And if the job market has pushed you into a place where you feel helpless or invisible, it's time to flip the switch. Because there is another way. A more aligned, empowered, and direct way. We live in an era where the middleman is disappearing. You can connect directly with people who need what you have. Whether it's knowledge, service, insight, creativity, or presence, there is a market for it. You no longer need a gatekeeper to let you in. The door is already open. You just have to walk through it. Now, I'm not saying everyone should quit their jobs tomorrow and start a business. That's not the message. The message is stop thinking that a job is the only path forward. Stop thinking that success only comes when someone else offers you a seat at their table. What if you build your own table? What if you stopped knocking and started creating? The system is shifting fast. But in every breakdown, there's an opportunity. And right now, the opportunity is this: reclaim your autonomy. Wake up to the reality that the economy no longer rewards loyalty. It rewards initiative, speed, and originality. You don't need more job alerts. You need more clarity, more courage, and more ownership. The people who will thrive in this new era aren't the ones with the fanciest degrees or the longest CVs. They're the ones who realize that security isn't given anymore, it's created. So here's what I want to leave you with. If you keep chasing what's fading, you'll miss what's emerging. Let go of the old script. The future belongs to the builders. Let's talk about something most people never slow down long enough to realizing. You already have everything you need to begin. Right now, I know that sounds bold, maybe even unrealistic, but it's the truth. And psychology backs it. We tend to underestimate what we know and overestimate what we need. We're so used to measuring our value through degrees, certifications, job titles, or someone else's approval that we completely overlook what's already in our hands. Here's what I want you to understand: you were not born empty. You weren't born waiting to be filled. You were born equipped with perspective, with lived experience, with talents that don't always show up on a resume, but show up every day in how you think, speak, observe, and contribute. But the system doesn't teach you look inward. It teaches you to look outward, for validation, for authority, for direction. And that's why most people never tap to their real potential. because they're looking for answers in the wrong places. Psychologically, we're wired to seek certainty. Our brains are designed to avoid risk. So, when you start to think about doing your own thing, maybe offering a skill, starting a service, building a brand, your brain instantly throws up resistance. But I'm not ready. What if I fail? I'm not qualified. But here's the kicker. Those doubts aren't evidence that you can't. They're just signals that you're stepping outside your comfort zone. And that's where growth begins. Let's take a second to redefine what we mean by skills. We've been conditioned to think of skills as hard, technical abilities. Coding, accounting, graphic design, whatever fits neatly into a job description. But that's a narrow view. True skills include how well you listen, how clearly you communicate, how you organize chaos, could be in how you solve problems, how you inspire trust. If you've ever worked a job, raised a child, cared for someone, overcome hardship, you've built skills. You just haven't been taught to see them as valuable. And that's where the psychological shift has to happen. You need to stop waiting for someone to call your abilities official. No one is going to knight you with a sword and declare, you're now worthy of offering what you know. That moment doesn't come. You have to claim that for yourself. You have to take inventory of what you've learned from life, not just from classrooms, and decide that it's worth something. Because it is. Philosophically, we live in a world that's obsessed with becoming. Instead of being, we're constantly in pursuit mode, always preparing, always getting ready for the next thing. But preparation becomes a trap if you're using it to delay action. There comes a point where you have to stop learning and start doing. Because clarity doesn't come from consuming. It comes from creating. You figure it out by starting, not by sitting on the sidelines. And here's what's beautiful about the world we live in today. You can take what you know and package it. You can teach it, coach it, write about it, film it, design it, offer it as a service, and instantly connect with people who need it. You don't need 1 million followers. You don't need a fancy brand. You just need to solve one problem for one person and do it well. That's how you build momentum. That's how confidence grows. Not before you act, but because you acted. One of the biggest myths we've bought into is that success comes from doing one big thing. But that's not true. Success comes from doing one small thing consistently until it compounds. And the most powerful place to start with what you already have, what you already know, what's already burning inside you, waiting to be used. If you've ever had someone say, "You're really good at that," pay attention. If there's something you could talk about for hours without running out of energy, that matters. If you've overcome something and come out stronger, you've got insight someone else is praying for. Don't minimize what feels obvious to you. What's obvious to you is often extraordinary to someone else. So stop disqualifying yourself. You are not too late. You are not underqualified. You are not missing some magical ingredient. You are not invisible. You are ready enough to begin, and that's all you need. You already have the spark. What you do next determines whether it becomes a fire. Let's get one thing straight. You're living in the most accessible, connected, opportunity-rich time in human history. That's not an exaggeration. That's a fact. And yet, most people are still acting like they need permission to begin. Like there's some hidden gate they have to unlock to start building something of their own. But here's the reality: the gate is gone. It's been gone for a while. The internet, this global digital infrastructure we now take for granted, has leveled the playing field in a way that previous generations could only dream about. You no longer need a fancy title, a corner office, or some expensive degree to share what you know or to solve problems for people. The tools are in your pocket. Literally. Your smartphone, your laptop, voice, your experiences. These are assets. And when you start using them intentionally, you stop chasing and start attracting. That's the power of the digital economy. It's decentralized, it's democratized. It rewards action, not waiting. The old economy was built on hierarchy. It rewarded those who climbed the ladder, played the game, and followed the rules. But that ladder, it's broken. And in many industries, it's being replaced altogether. Today's economy rewards those who build networks, create value, and move fast. People who are visible, not just talented. People who are consistent, not just credentialed. And if you're willing to show up, share your perspective, and offer something useful, you can carve out space in this new world. Psychologically, though, this shift creates tension because it requires you to think differently about authority, about value, about risk. The job market taught us that if you stay quiet, do good work, and wait your turn, eventually you'll be noticed. The digital world doesn't work like that. If you stay quiet, no one knows you exist. If you don't put yourself out there, someone else will. It's not about ego. It's about visibility. If people can't find you, they can't pay you. Period. That's a hard truth for a lot of people, especially those who were raised to believe that humility meant staying small. But there's a difference between humble and being invisible. You can be grounded in your values and still share what you know. You can be a servant leader and still build a platform. And you should, because the people who need what you have aren't just going to stumble across you. You have to meet them halfway. That's what the digital economy allows you to do. And the best part, you don't need to be an expert. You just need to be a little further down the road than someone else. That's it. People don't want perfection. They want relatability. They want real. They want solutions that work from people who get it. So whether you're starting a YouTube channel, launching a digital product, coaching, writing, designing, freelancing, whatever it is, you're not required to have it all figured out. You're required to begin. Philosophically, this shift is profound because it reframes identity. You're no longer just a job title. You're a creator, a communicator, a connector. You're not bound by a company's branding. You get to define your own. And that's liberating, but it also means responsibility. Because now, if you're stuck, it's not because there aren't options. It's because you're hesitating to take one. And I get it. There's fear. Fear of judgment. Fear of failure. Fear of not being good enough. But let's be honest, those fears aren't going anywhere. You just get to choose whether they sit in the driver's seat or the back seat. And when you realize that the cost of inaction is higher than the risk of trying, you start moving differently. You start experimenting. You start offering. You stop being paralyzed by the idea that you need to be great right away. And you just get better by doing. Every platform you know, Instagram, TikTok, Substack, Fiverr, Upwork, LinkedIn, is just a marketplace for attention and value. You bring attention by showing up. You bring value by solving problems. It really is that simple. But simple doesn't mean easy. The hardest part is giving yourself permission to be seen. So here's what I want you to take from this. You don't have to wait anymore. The gatekeepers are gone. The tools are free. The audience is out there. And the only thing missing is your decision to show up. You're not locked out of opportunity. You're just one choice away from creating it. Let me ask you something you might not have considered lately. Whose dream are you building right now? Because if you're still chasing jobs, still waiting for someone else to give you a role, a position, a paycheck, you're likely spending the best hours of your day, the best years of your life, building someone else's vision. And for most people, that realization doesn't hit until it's too late. Until burnout kicks in. Until purpose feels like a distant echo. Until things they were passionate about are buried under someone else's deadlines. Time is the most expensive currency you'll ever own. And once it's gone, there's no refund. So when you trade your time, the real question is, what are you getting in return? Not just money, not just status, but meaning, ownership, direction, DNA. If your days are filled with tasks that don't light you up, that don't reflect who you are or where you're headed, then what exactly are you working toward? The modern economy has trained people to be busy, not intentional. We're taught to clock in, zone out, do just enough to not get fired and wait until Friday for a break. But let's be clear, being busy is not the same as being productive. And being productive isn't the same as being fulfilled. You can be productive for 10 years straight and still feel lost if none of that effort is aligned with your purpose. And here's where the psychological depth kicks in. Most of us are more comfortable with predictability than we are with possibility. We'd rather stay in the job that drains us than face the uncertainty of creating something new. But that's not safety. It's a slow compromise. It's death by 1,000 comfort zones. And we don't call it what it is because the world normalizes it. But deep down, you feel it. That subtle H in your gut that whispers, this isn't it. That's not doubt. That's your soul trying to wake you up. We're not wired to feel alive just by checking boxship, ownership. We need autonomy. That's not ego. It's basic human psychology. When you feel like your work is yours, when it reflects your decisions, your effort, your growth, you show up differently. You care more. You create more. You push yourself because it matters to you, not because someone told you to. Now let's talk about freedom. Real freedom. Most people define freedom as not having a boss or being able to travel whenever they want. But true freedom isn't external, it's internal. It's the ability to say yes to what aligns with you and no to what doesn't. It's knowing that you're not waiting for permission to change your life. That's what ownership gives you. It gives you the power to create, to pivot, to scale, to rest on your terms. But ownership requires responsibility. Hey, you don't get to blame the market. You don't get to HR to notice you. You don't get to stay silent and hope for a raise. When you decide to own your direction, you give up the comfort of waiting and you gain the power of doing. And that shift is everything, because it puts the steering wheel back in your hands. There's also a deep philosophical truth here. We talk a lot about legacy, about meaning, about making an impact, but doesn't come from climbing someone else's ladder. It comes from building your own, even if it's messy, even if it's small. What you build is a reflection of what you believe. And when your time is spent creating instead of complying, you don't just leave behind results, you leave behind resonance. So if you've been telling yourself you're not ready, or that the timing isn't perfect, let me remind you, it never will be. There will always be something uncertain. There will always be risk. But there's a bigger risk in staying still. Because while you're hesitating, the clock is ticking, the world is moving, and opportunities don't wait for comfort. This is the moment to take your power back. Not tomorrow, not when things settle down, right now. Because the longer you invest your time in building someone else's dream, the further you drift from your own. Let's get honest about something we rarely talk about: the gap between belief and action. Because a lot of people say they believe in themselves, believe in a higher power, believe in their dreams, but they don't move. They're stuck in place, waiting for some kind of cosmic signal or perfect clarity before they start. And what don't realize is that belief alone changes nothing if it isn't paired with movement. Faith isn't just a feeling, it's a decision, a practice, a muscle. And the only way that muscle grows is when you use it without guarantees. That's the psychological tension most people run from. They want certainty first. Could be they want to know it'll work before they risk failing. But that's not faith, that's control. And the longer you wait for the fear to disappear before you act, the longer you stay trapped in the same loop of indecision and regret. Look, nobody is fearless. That's not what courage looks like. Courage is doing it while you're afraid. Courage is showing up before the plan is complete. It's taking the next step even when the outcome is unclear. The people who succeed, the ones who build something real, something lasting, aren't the ones who had all the answers from the beginning. They're the ones who got tired of waiting, tired of feeling disconnected, tired of living below their potential. And they decided to move, not because they had full clarity, but because not moving was starting to cost them more. There's a deep philosophical lesson here. Real transformation doesn't begin when conditions are ideal. It begins the moment you stop negotiating with fear. It begins when you say, even if I'm uncertain, I'm going to trust the process more than I trust my doubt. And that's hard, I get it. But here's what people often forgetting: progress brings confidence, not the other way around. You don't get confidence then start. You start and confidence catches up. And when you talk about faith, especially if you believe in a higher power, understand this: trusting that things will unfold is only half of it. The other half is doing your part. You weren't created to be passive. You weren't given ideas, creativity, intuition, and drive just to sit on them. You were given those gifts so you could co-create something with the life you've been handed. Waiting for signs is one thing, but often the sign is the idea that won't leave you alone, the dream that keeps resurfacing, the restlessness that keeps you up at night. That is your nudge. And if you want a faith perspective, think about this: what if the doors won't open until you knock? What if provision is waiting for your first step, not the other way around? That's not just spirituality, that's psychology. The brain responds to intention. When you commit to something fully, when you begin taking steps, you activate parts of the mind that were dormant before. You start seeing connections you never noticed. You gain momentum. And with momentum comes energy, clarity, and direction. But if you keep holding back till things feel safe or certain, you're choosing stagnation. And stagnation is a slow form of suffering. You'll start to resent yourself, not because you failed, but because you never gave yourself a real shot. That inner frustration, that's your potential asking you to stop ignoring it. Because deep down, you know you're capable of more. You've just been stuck in the cycle of overthinking. Overthinking is a defense mechanism. It convinces you that if you just analyze it more, plan it better, or prepare longer, you'll eliminate risk. But that's a lie. You don't eliminate risk, you live with it. You take it with you. And the people who win, who build their own lane and live with freedom, they're not the ones who had perfect timing. They're the ones who finally got fed up with waiting. And maybe that's where you are right now. Maybe this message isn't new. It's just louder this time. Maybe it's the reminder you didn't know you needed. That faith in the end isn't just something you hold in your heart. It's something you prove with your hands, your calendar, your choices. So here's the question that could change everything for you. If you really believed it was possible, what would you do today? There's a moment in every journey where you either keep stalling or you start. It's not a dramatic moment, no spotlight, no soundtrack. Just a quiet decision you make with yourself. I'm going to stop thinking about it and I'm going to do something now. And that's what separates people who change their lives from those who keep talking about changing their lives. It's not the ones who have the best ideas. It's not the ones who read the most books or attend the most seminars. It's the ones who start. You don't need to have the whole plan. You don't need a website, a logo, or 10,000 followers. What you need is motion, forward movement, action, because that's where clarity lies. Not in your head, not in your journal, not in your vision board. Clarity shows up in the doing. You offer your skills to someone. You post your first video. You reach out to that client. You teach something you know. That's where momentum begins, not by thinking, but by building. But here's where a lot of people get stuck. They believe they have to start big. Like if they don't launch with the perfect brand or a polished product, it's not worth doing. And that's a trap, because starting big isn't the goal. Starting real is. Start simple, start scrappy, start honest. That's where trust is built. That's how your voice becomes clear. Perfection is not the standard, progress is. And there's a deeper reason behind that fear of starting. Psychologically, we tie our identity to the outcome. We say, if I launch and it fails, that means I'm not good enough. So instead, we stay in the safe zone of potential. Potential feels nice because it's full of promise. But promise without execution is just a comfortable form of procrastination. And the longer you sit in it, the heavier it gets. You start questioning yourself, not because you aren't capable, but because you haven't given yourself any proof. You can break that cycle. You break it by doing one thing well right now. Serve one person, solve one problem, create one resource, teach one thing. That's how it starts. And when you do that, something powerful happens. You realize you don't need to beg for opportunities. You can create them. You don't need to be discovered. You need to be consistent. Every business, every personal brand, every movement you admire started with one choice: to stop waiting and begin creating. It wasn't clean. It wasn't perfect. But it was real. And that's what resonates. We connect with what's real. That's what builds trust, and trust builds momentum. And once you've started, the rhythm is simpler: teach, serve, build, repeat. That's it. Teach what you know, no matter how basic it feels. Serve others with it. Solve their problems. Build something from that interaction, and then do it again. You don't need a million people. You just need one person to believe in what you're offering, 2, then 5. That's how all of it grows. Philosophically, there's something beautiful here too. You're not just building a business or a side hustle. You're building a new relationship with yourself. One where you stop outsourcing your power. One where you stop waiting for the world to tell you're ready. The act of starting, even imperfectly, is a declaration. It says, I trust myself enough to begin. And that's where the internal shift happens. That's where identity changes. Not from affirmations, but from action. And yes, it will be uncomfortable. Question everything. You'll second guess whether anyone cares. But discomfort is a sign of expansion, not failure. You're stretching. You're learning. You're becoming. You're trading predictability for possibility. And that's what real growth demands. So don't wait for the moment to feel right. Don't wait until you've figured it all out. The truth is, you can't figure it all out until you're in motion. And the longer you delay, the further you drift from the life you're capable of living. Start small, start messy, start anyway. Because the life you want isn't found in planning. It's found in motion.